second witness, Dr. Jillian Peterson, was utilizing false information while forming her opinion of the case.
One of the problems with Dr. Peterson's testimony is that she relies on information that is at issue in the case and, quite frankly, is incorrect. She relies on information that the shooter was provided access to a gun and wrote an op-ed piece within a week of the shooting happening and relied on the information that these parents gave access to a gun. The access to a gun is going to be a highly contested issue at trial, and Dr. Peterson relying on that information is only in an effort to get the jury to believe it's true.
All right, still with me, former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Marie Pettler, former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani, and death investigator and forensic criminologist Dr. Laura Pettler. Nima, let me start with you. The prosecutor in this case, she said that there is a pathway to violence. And what they're going to try to show this jury is that this pathway was open and could be seen by just about everyone who knew this kid, particularly his parents, at the end of the day. And that because there was this pathway, by not noticing it, they basically created a situation where this could happen, basically allowing it to happen, and therefore they're guilty of involuntary manslaughter. I want to get a sense from you whether you think that is sound logic.
I do, Michael. And look, this is an unprecedented case, and I agree with this prosecution, though, because here you have parents who were actually put on notice, not just by folks at the school, but their own son. He's drawing pictures of violence. He's searching for weapons and ammunition online. They're contacted by school officials. Not only do they turn a blind eye to it, they don't pull him out of school. They don't take the appropriate actions. And what do they do instead? They buy a firearm for him as an early Christmas gift. And of course, he uses that to shoot up the school. So I understand from a legal perspective, normally an intentional criminal act, it breaks the chain of causation and you can't be responsible for someone else's criminal conduct. But if you give someone a loaded gun, a minor, you know that he has a propensity to commit violence. It's no different from you putting your child behind a vehicle knowing that he or she's under the influence of alcohol. That's criminally negligent in my book, and I think it's a question for the jury, certainly not something that should be dismissed at this stage of the proceedings.
Dr. Laura, let me ask you, this pathway to violence, what the defense is arguing, or at least part of their argument, is that it's a relatively novel science, and the state talked about the FBI recognizes a set of behaviors leading up to targeted violence, et cetera, et cetera. Your thoughts on this science that they're trying to present, this idea that there are these signs that not only should be recognized, but recognized by parents and then connected to this act that we saw by their son?
I agree with Nima, first of all, that the parents definitely have a duty to provide health care for their child, which includes mental health care. And it does not appear that they've done that by all accounts. And that, they really, the way that behavior works, it is predictable unless there's some kind of a break where in the mental health of that person, they lose touch with reality, they're dissociative and things like that. Then maybe there's an argument for, does this person not know what they're doing? Have they lost their faculties? Are they not lucid? But that is not the situation here. In this situation, he was drawing pictures, he was vocalizing, and then they moved forward with just completely dismissing all of the warning signs that this son was going through something and he needed a lot of help. So yes, I think that there's a lot to say about the science and about the studies that go on to study mass shooters. They want to do community victimization, and that's their goal, is to accomplish victimizing the entire community and causing community trauma.
Marie, I have to ask you because while I understand exactly what Nima and Dr. Pettler are saying, as a parent, you know, you can see things, and we all have it. I mean, for things that are not quite as serious as this, you may dismiss them. Let's just talk about maybe your child isn't in speaking as well as kids his age. You know, you can look at it and say, oh, he'll be fine, he'll figure it out eventually. And we all know if we get them help sooner, things get better faster. But a lot of parents don't want to see things that way. Do you think it's fair that we ask parents to see certain signs? And again, I'll mention this, you know, in Michigan, there is a different culture regarding guns. So a kid being into guns or having an obsession with guns may not be looked upon the same way. Buying a gun for a child may be looked upon differently. Your thoughts on imputing this kind of knowledge to the parents about what might come from their act of either not getting him mental health or buying him a gun?
I think it lends to accountability, and that's, you know, a boy that lived with them. They know their son. They heard his words. They saw his behavior. And I think that parents who openly buy guns for their children, who they know have mental health issues and who haven't been treated, have to be held accountable. Because what the prosecutor is saying, but for the fact that you knew your son was unstable and was dealing with mental issues, and you gave him access to a gun, this might have not happened. And I think the expert testimony is 100% relevant, and it should be allowed, because if it wasn't for what they did, that could have been avoided, period.
Nima, I want to ask you if another intervening act might be that the school, first of all, didn't send him home or insist that he be kept apart or taken out, and didn't check his bag and let him go back to class after they made the suggestion that the family take him home. So they clearly did not. And these are trained counselors who have much more training than the average parent about what's possible or what they're seeing, what that could lead to. Shouldn't their acts be intervening acts that sort of insulate the parents?
Well, there's potential civil liability on the school, but I don't think it's a potential criminal act that breaks chain of criminal causation here. Now, with respect to the backpack, I mean, that is a Fourth Amendment issue. Do they have probable cause to search the backpack? I don't know. But I mean, what's the worst that would have happened had they done it? You know, they would have potentially had that evidence suppressed. So certainly you can question the actions of the school. That may be the basis for civil liability, Michael, but I certainly don't think there's any criminal responsibility. There was certainly no actual knowledge. I mean, that's the difference. The parents had actual knowledge. The school told them, they bought the gun anyway. They posted about it on Facebook. You know, these are mom and dad who are really pro-Second Amendment, pro-gun, and they knew that their son had these violent thoughts. I mean, it was given to them in writing. What more do you need to know that this is a potentially dangerous situation with someone that has a propensity to violence? You should not arm that person. Just like, Michael, you shouldn't arm someone in this country that's a felon or has a mental illness or a drug addiction. And that's the law in every state in this country. So if you do that, you give a felon a gun or someone that shouldn't have a gun, you can be criminally responsible. And we saw that in the Texas case recently.
All right, Dr. Pettler, what argument can you make in favor of the parents here? The idea that perhaps, I mean, clearly the foreseeability is an issue for parents in terms of looking at their children and the things that they're seeing, and maybe ignoring some of them because they want to think or feel the best about their children.
I think that is a good point. I do think that parents tend to want to see the best in their children. But the document that we were just seeing here on the screen, Michael, is apparently some type of a math class document. It looked like a geometry test or some type of a worksheet. And instead of anything related to the topic, clearly this child is focused on violence. He's drawing a person with blood coming out of the person. He's drawn a firearm and states clearly, the thoughts won't stop, help me, blood everywhere, and draws a bullet. His focus is not on anything else but violence. And I think anybody looks at this, and this is shown to the parents cannot just dismiss this as, you know, childhood banter or something like that. I mean, to me, that is crazy. But I think the argument stands that they are responsible to provide health care for their child, and that includes mental health, and this was foreseeable.
All right, Maria, I only have 2 seconds left. Do you think they're going to use him to testify against the parents in their trial?
I don't think they need to use him. The act, what happened, those photographs, it speaks for itself. And I don't think that they are going to have to use him at all because it's just right there in front of everyone's face to see. It was reckless. The accountability, the foreseeability, the neglect, no. There's nothing else they need to do.
All right, Marie, Nima, Dr. Pettler, please stand by. I do have to take a break. When we come back, folks, disturbing allegations made by an Iowa woman. She claims her dad killed dozens and dozens of people and then dumped them in a well on their property. And she said she tried to get help for decades.
Growing up in the area, we'd heard stories about bodies in a well and stuff. Didn't really have names associated with it and that sort of stuff. But, you know, I just thought it was worth looking into.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. Could this be the most prolific serial killer that this nation has ever seen? The daughter of Donald Studi says that her dad killed 50 to 70 people years ago, back in the 60s through the 80s. Well, how does she know? She claims she helped him dispose of the bodies in a well on the family's Iowa property. Isabella Bosco from affiliate KMTV has the details on this bizarre story.
Deputy Michael Wake has lived in Tabor, Iowa his whole life and had several dealings with Donald Studi, admitting something seemed off.
We had one time he held himself hostage with a gun, was threatening to do self-harm. We talked him out of that.
About a year ago, Studi's daughter Lucy contacted the deputy, claiming her father would bring women home and kill them, burying them in a well that's 90 feet deep.
Growing up in the area, we'd heard stories about bodies in a well and stuff. Didn't really have names associated with it and that sort of stuff. But, you know, I just thought it was worth looking into.
This area, Green Hollow Road, is where Donald lived, and the well is up in the hills.
We found the well, and we've people that she has said might know something. We've contacted them and got their statements. We, here in the last week or so, we did take a couple of cadaver dogs up there. They looked at this, you know, they went over the scene, and yes, they indicated.
That's still not enough evidence that there are bodies there. The sheriff says agencies like the FBI and the Iowa Department of Criminal Investigations are providing support. To see if the bodies are there, Sheriff Astrup says this is a possibility.
So if we core drilled some 4-inch holes around there, and if there was that many bodies, we would probably come up with a bone, I would think.
Astrup is getting estimates on how much that would cost. But first, he'll bring back cadaver dogs, bring in metal detectors, and perhaps use ground-penetrating radar to see what's there. He warns the investigation will be slow, but he's making this promise.
We're going to follow through. You know, we're going to finish this one way or another. We're going to get the answers to this.
Now, Lucy Studi told Newsweek that she tried to get help for decades, and no one would listen. Naveed Jamali is the editor-at-large at Newsweek, and he said this last night on Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan about this woman's story.
Before I was a journalist, I spent a lot of time working undercover as an intelligence officer. I know how to do debriefing, and there's little tells that people make when they're telling a lie. You know, you look down to your left. The consistency, the fact that she was able to point by locations. I was there when the dogs hit on those sites. She did not direct the dogs. The dogs gravitated toward those sites organically. There was 2 dogs. They were brought at separate times. I mean, just this is a very consistent story. Her motive is not money or fame. You know, and again, as a reporter, we've talked to other people that have corroborated bits and pieces of this. And look, I take the standard approach. If you're going to lie about the little things, you can't trust someone about the big things. And so far, we've been able to, you know, corroborate quite a few little things. And I think the big things stand up to them, to what she's saying.
All right, still with me, former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Marie Pettler, former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani, and death investigator and forensic criminologist Dr. Laura Pettler. Dr. Pettler, I want to start with you because this case, something feels off about this case. And again, you heard the journalist there talk about the idea that things have checked out kind of with the story, but I just find it so hard to believe a couple of things. One, that this woman would have been trying to tell all these people all this time about this and no one paid attention, but two, that her father would recruit the children to help him get rid of these bodies. Does any of that make sense to you?
It does, in the cycle of violence. If you have an offender who is in control of victims, they can make them do anything they want to. So, like, if this is an abusive man, if the children are abused, if they're afraid of him, if they live in fear, it's very possible that he could be in control of them and then, tell them, you're going to help me, you're going to do this, or, I'm going to beat you, or I'm going to threaten you in some other way, causing fear. So it's definitely a high number, 70 to 90, I think is what was said. That's a lot of bodies. I mean, I've been on many death scenes with multiple victims, and even 2 bodies is a lot. And so to think of 70 or 90, I mean, you're talking like a mass disaster type of a scene, even though it's a 90-foot depth well. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out here, whether or not she is credible. And then, why is she coming forward now? And why, if she went to people before, did they never listen to her? What's different now than then, before?
Yeah, and that when they went up there, they took dogs up to the well area, cadaver dogs, and she kind of pointed to a general area, and there were hits. 2 dogs. So while, some people say, cadaver dogs can hit on different things depending on conditions, 2 separate dogs hit on separate areas. So, it seems to be some credibility. But Nima, maybe you can make sense of why authorities now, she's come forward over the years. As a matter of fact, her quote was something to the effect that she tried to tell people because in order to relieve the trauma, she wanted to give closure to the victims. So she kept trying to tell her story. Can you make sense of why investigators, the FBI, local investigators, no one would pay attention to this kind of claim?
Well, it is a very incredulous claim. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be true, but she's saying that her father is the biggest serial killer in U.S. history. Anything over 50 bodies, 70, 90. That's a lot of bodies. And people say all sorts of different things. I'm not saying it's true. Maybe there's 5 bodies in there. Maybe there's 50 bodies there. Maybe there aren't any. But, when you work in law enforcement, and you shouldn't discount any leads, but, you hear these stories all the time where, someone's reporting a crime, law enforcement doesn't take it seriously. So unfortunately, these types of things happen. I hope that that law enforcement did do the right thing. Either the report wasn't made or there's some sort of exaggeration going on. But yeah, if someone's reporting this type of murder and the FBI or local law enforcement or state troopers aren't investigating, that's a big problem, Michael.
Now, Marie, what's interesting is she said that the way her father would kill a lot of the victims, a lot of them would be transient type folks, sex workers, folks, runaways, things of that nature. She said his favorite way to kill them was to bash their heads inside of a trailer that they had. He wouldn't involve the kids in that aspect of it, but he would involve them in terms of getting, hiding the bodies after that, digging them up and burying them. I just got to get your thoughts on this idea that this guy would do this and then involve his children that way.
I'm not saying that it couldn't have happened because there are people who are mentally ill out there, and there are people who would actually get their children to help them get rid of bodies. But I'm curious to know, what is the mental health of this daughter? And who exactly is corroborating what she's saying? And who is dismissing the accounts that she's detailing with such precision? I would need to understand that before I could believe her, because I'm not going to lie, the first thing I thought is, okay, this is crazy. Who is reporting this?
Yes.
I would need to know what her mental health is, not to put her on the spot, but the amount of people, like Dr. Laura said, like 90 bodies, and it took her this long to report it, and no one believed her?
Yeah.
I would need to know what her mental health is before I could determine the truth in this situation.
I agree 100%. I mean, if you got this kind of story to tell, you don't stop till somebody listens to you. You just don't say, oh, okay, you don't want to listen, I'll go home, go to sleep, I'll try again next week. Again, Naveed Jamali was the journalist who sort of followed and brought this story to light. I want to listen to a little bit more about what he had to say about the daughter of this supposed serial killer.
She would, in some cases, help dispose of the bodies, not kill people, but she described several instances in which she witnessed her father and other people bringing bodies and disposing them. The well is just one site.
So, Dr. Pettler, what would you think about this woman? Let me tell you a little bit about her. Eventually, you know, she says that she describes herself as cold and detached. She also says her brother committed suicide at 39, and this guy, her dad, had 2 wives. Both of them committed suicide. One shot herself in the head, the other strangled herself with some kind of wire, which they need to probably dig her up and figure that out. But anyway, what would be sort of the mindset of a woman like this who either is telling the truth or coming forward with some sort of wild lie?
Well, I think it's in opposition. You know, they're in stark contrast. She's saying that she's cold and detached, but she's coming forward because she's recognizing in an empathetic manner that these families have experienced tremendous trauma from losing these people. Even if they are transients, even if they are sex workers, they are still people's family somewhere. And so, like, it's very inconsistent to me to hear that she's cold and detached, but then she has this tremendous need for this empathetic expression to give 70 to 90 people some type of truth, some type of justice, some type of closure. You know, it's a story that definitely needs to be explored. Yeah. And I agree that all leads should be explored like that, but again, they are not. They definitely are not in our country.
Yeah, what's interesting is, according to the investigators, to dig up that area is going to cost upwards of $50,000 or so. So, you know, this is no minor deal here. So we'll have to see how this one plays out. Well, Dr. Pettler, thank you so much for joining us today. Always a real pleasure to have you on the show. Marie and Nima, you're going to be sticking around with us, as hopefully you guys are as well, because coming up next, the jury delivered their verdict in the sleeping husband murder trial. Holly Osborne was guilty of murder,